In Season 1, Episode 5 of Amazon's The Lord of Ring of Powers, escaped mental patient Galadriel has just convinced the Queen Regent of the island nation of Númenor to dispatch a military expedition to Middle-earth in order to assist the men of the Southlands in defending against the Orc invasion. The Orcs are coming for the Southlanders' delicious chocolate milk, and Galadriel suspects they might be led by the second coming of Satan. This, incidentally, is the point where two parallel plotlines intersect. Isildur, sailing school dropout and future king of Gondor, wants to join the expedition for reasons I will attempt to decipher later, but is prevented by the consequences of his own actions, so he decides to stow away. Kemen, the son of Prime Minister Pharazôn, is against the expedition because of a lady he's been chatting up since the last episode. He fails to convince his father, so he decides to commit treason. The expedition initially consists of 5 ships, but seemingly by accident, they end up trespassing on the same one. At first glance, this seems contrived, but how much of a contrivance is it, really? If we want to answer this question, it will be useful to have a quantifiable standard for what a contrivance is exactly. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to define it, in short, as an improbable event that the plot depends on. In particular, it must be improbable taking into account all relevant information from the entire story about the world as it is before the event. If our heroes are getting shot at with automatic weapons by professional soldiers in an open space, but don't get hit, that would be a contrivance. Unless it's later revealed that they were ordered to allow the heroes to escape unharmed, as part of the villain's greater plan. However, it can't be explained by simply saying, they have to miss so the rest of the movie can happen, or we see them miss so they must all have really bad aim, which explains why they missed. And if they are indeed shown as incompetent goobers who consistently miss stationary targets at point-blank range, it then doesn't make sense for the protagonists to feel threatened by them in the first place. It would be difficult to formally demonstrate that the first condition applies because it requires proving a negative. There's always a possibility that an apparent plot hole will be explained in a flashback 5 seasons later as the result of a conspiracy by time wizards. However, absence of evidence is evidence of absence. If we can't find an explanation in any scene where we would reasonably expect an explanation to be, we can at least be justifiably confident that none exists at all. Besides, if the logic of your story is so obscure and poorly conveyed that the audience can only understand it clearly after going through the entire show frame by frame, that is a problem in itself. Contrivances are greasy fingerprints left by the clumsy hand of God. In theory, they are never necessary. The writer is all-knowing and all-powerful. With sufficient planning, previous events can be tailored to fit subsequent payoffs, without compromising the internal logic of the story. In practice, there are constraints like deadlines or incompetence. A writer who lacks time, will, or skill might resort to bending luck or assuming direct control over characters. For the second part, a plot depends on a given event as much as it would have to proceed differently if that event didn't happen. For example, how much of a contrivance is it that Smeagol, of all people, came to possess the One Ring? Not much of one, because history could still proceed almost unchanged if Smeagol's next-door neighbor, Bob the Hobbit, found the ring first. Perhaps Bob would have killed his cousin, Smob, and became a twisted creature called Gollum, living under the Misty Mountains. Let's look at the numbers. For clarity, let's number the ships from 1 to 5. The likelihood of both Kemen and Isildur ending up on, say, ship number 5 is 1 in 25. But we don't care if they end up on ship 5 in particular, or any specific ship, just that they end up on the same one. So we have 5 options out of 25, or 1 in 5. We could also consider this a shell game, where we hide Isildur on one of the ships, and Kemen has to find him in one try. Since Kemen has no prior indication of where Isildur is hiding, there's no strategy that will give him more than a 20% chance of winning. Conversely, because Isildur has no information about which ship Kemen will set on fire, there's no way for him to hide better, to reduce Kemen's chances to below 20%. To be precise, the likelihood would be the same if either of them made an unbiased random choice, even if the other had a specific preference. This is the same reason why, if you don't know the answers on a multiple choice test, marking all A's is equivalent, in terms of expected score, to making random choices. Since one other ship also caught fire and blew up, Isildur also had at least a 20% chance of getting exploded, which would have some consequences for the future of Middle-earth. The probability of Isildur surviving, but his story not playing out exactly as it has, would be 60%. It's difficult to tell how that would affect the overall plot, because Isildur's actions are internally incoherent, but we'll get to that later.
We're fortunate we didn't lose the rest of the ships as well.
If that was a possibility, that would suggest these are the remaining ships. It would make Isildur's chances of exploding higher, since he had a 60% chance of ending up on one of them, which would also give him another opportunity to die in a fire. The detonated ship was one of the two unmoored ones closest to the harbor. This one catches fire from burning shrapnel. This effectively dissolves the contrivance, since it would be sensible for both the stowaway and the arsonist to make the choice that requires the least amount of rowing. Well, I say dissolves, but it's more like it passes the buck. Maybe Isildur and Kemen meet here because only two ships are within convenient reach, but that just kicks the can down the road. There's no particular reason why they would be arranged this way, other than to make a pretty CGI shot for the trailers, and to serve another incredibly super critically important crucial purpose for the rest of the plot, which we will discuss near the end of this video to maximize engagement. By the way, if you've seen this episode and you aren't just taking my word for it, you might say, hold on, that's not the only coincidence in this scene. Isildur's presence on the ship is only revealed because he happens to cough at the exact right moment. And you would be correct. Science says a healthy person coughs 7 times a day on average, so this coincidence is about 8 times worse than the ship bit, and it's completely unnecessary. Instead of sleeping under a tarp, he could have been looking out for patrols and noticed Kemen breaking barrels of petroleum. Then again, nobody seems to be guarding the ships, because I guess the writers didn't want to bring ethical issues into domestic terrorism.
Can't find tooth nor tail of him. Must have got smart and scarpered.
No.
Sleepy.
Yeah.
Old man Waldrzek just falls asleep.
Yes, father. That's what you're looking for!
We first see Isildur training to follow his father's footsteps in the Seaguard. From the distance he hears the call to adventure and gets briefly distracted, but his friend Valandil snaps him out of it. He sees Imrahir make a mistake and tries to warn him, but is too late. Imrahir unties the wrong rope and gets pulled along. An alligator bites him on the way up. He survives the ordeal, but is summarily expelled when they reach shore. This serves to establish the Seaguard's one strike and you're out rule, which will be relevant later.
Isildur! Your sister's here!
This line, where an unseen extra states the obvious to Isildur, feels like it was added in post. Did they look at the timeline and realized we're going to spend the next 34 minutes with cannibal forest goblins and other such riveting side plots before it's first stated in dialogue that this is Isildur's sister? In any case, this scene also introduces Isildur's best friend and one of the most pivotal characters in this story arc, Beric the horse. Next up, Isildur's father, Captain Elendil, is reminding the audience about Galadriel's current situation. Isildur seems to treat Galadriel as a celebrity. He's a big fan, but Yerien is offended that an elf had the sheer audacity to land on the shores of Númenor. This is nice. An attempt at characterization was made, except in the first shot Yerien is smiling, enjoying the Galadriel puppet show, and after the cut, she's instantly grumpy. It's fine, just a little continuity error. Remember movies? Remember when every line of dialogue, movement and expression told you something about the characters? And when you watched them again, you would notice even more meaningful details that elevated the story? Okay, back to Rings of Power. Isildur prompts her brother to confess that he wants to take a sabbatical before his final exam in sailing school. Elendil infers that he wants to go to West Númenor, a place associated with some unspecified bad memories for them both. The terrible secret of West Númenor won't be revealed at least until the end of Season 2, which is unfortunate since Isildur's entire character motivation seems to revolve around it, making it a rare location-based MacGuffin. The conversation is briefly interrupted by a messenger with some news for Isildur. She also reminds Elendil what the name of his daughter is. The writer doesn't have faith in our ability to deduce that Isildur's sister is his father's daughter, but never bothers to explain why Isildur couldn't simply go on his journey of self-discovery after passing his finals. If you do pass the sea trial, are you immediately inducted into the Sea Guard and are obligated to begin your tour of duty? How long is the sea trial? Is Isildur just being impatient? I guess we'll never know. Oh, and also, Elendil has this line.
The watery part of this world has a way of healing even the deepest of wounds.
As an uneducated peasant, I just found this line funny. But the watery part of the world might be taken from the second sentence of Moby Dick? I'm no scholar of literature, but I'd read this description as quite flippant, underplaying the gravity of Ishmael's journey. I find it baffling that someone thought it was a good idea to transplant it into the middle of what was supposed to be serious, unironic, character-defining dialogue. It turns out the message was about Isildur getting accepted into the Builders Guild. Is it the Guild of the Builder or the Guild of the Builders? There's more than one of them. Anyway, she was rejected before, but Isildur had convinced her to reapply. So they turned back to look at him and the camera pans to the table, but he's no longer there. You can just see him walk off in the background. I actually don't know what they're trying to tell us here. Isildur doesn't care about his own career, but he encourages his sister to pursue hers, which establishes that the concept of responsibility is not completely alien to him, I guess. In the following episode, the first boat scene pays off. Isildur hears the voice of his late mom again, and decides to put his two best friends in danger in order to be expelled from sailing school. He deliberately lets go of the rope, and nothing especially bad happens, but the sailmaster gets angry enough to expel not only him, but also his friends by association. Or, well, I have reason to think that's what we're supposed to believe happens in this scene. It's not conveyed particularly well, so you could easily come to the conclusion that this was an accident.
That was deliberate.
When the sea speaks to Isildur, the background sounds fade out, as if to tell us he's not paying attention to his surroundings. He makes an expression of what could be charitably described as determination before looking down at the rope in his hands, but we don't see him let go, just the rope itself slipping. And he's surprised that the rope he just let go of didn't stay in place? Valandil's actor forgets his line. Then Isildur half-heartedly tries to grab the rope again. However, it is implied that between this scene and the next, he tells Valandil and Ontamo about West Númenor. And he makes the excuse of, I thought the sailmaster would only dismiss me. Also, a bit more ambiguously, he does say, I let it slip. It's just that if you absolutely must show and tell, I'd rather you didn't show and tell me different things.
I've seen you ease that halyard proper 100 times. That was deliberate.
The sailmaster's conclusion is factually correct from an omniscient point of view, but his reasoning, considering the character's individual state of knowledge, makes no sense. This would be easy to fix. If he was paying attention, he could have noticed Isildur sabotage his colleagues. Unless we're meant to think it was an accident, in which case the sailmaster is making an absurd, nonsensical decision just to move the plot along. Interpreting what's happening on screen in the Rings of Power is a zero-sum game of incompetence. There's no solution that makes everyone look good. At best, there's uncertainty about how the bad writing is distributed between characters. The Sailmaster isn't a character, he's a plot device, a generic stern drill sergeant.
There is no harsher master than the sea!
The only other time we see him directly interacting with somebody, as opposed to just shouting vague orders at nobody in particular, we don't get to hear it. He doesn't even get a name. This is unfortunate, because he's in a perfect position to be a sort of a mentor figure for Isildur. Someone he could discuss his position in life with. Maybe instead of getting arbitrarily thrown out, Isildur could volunteer for the mission, and the Sailmaster would be reluctant to let go of such a talented young sailor. We could learn more about Isildur as a person, explore his desire to, well, we don't really know, because the show isn't actually interested in exploring it. I guess we couldn't go that route, because we'd lose this meandering plotline where Isildur alienates his friends and family. And what a loss that would be. Valandil is understandably upset and makes some hurtful remarks about Isildur's mother, and Antamo is a good friend.
Going, staying, what does it matter? The real problem is him, and that's not going anywhere.
But if Isildur is the problem, and he goes away, then the problem goes away? I get that you mean if he leaves, he's just going to be a loser somewhere else. But why would you say it at this point? Don't you want him to leave? Do you want him to hang around, keep you company while you're unemployed? Are you saying it because this is the end of the scene and we need someone to awkwardly state the theme to us?
You remember me?
No.
Resigned from the cadets. Did you?
So that was an option. Isildur could have just left, instead of staging a workplace accident and endangering his friends. But whatever, at least he got what he wanted, right? He can go to West Númenor and...
I don't deserve to go west.
Not till I've done something worthy of Númenor.
He wants to quit the Sea Guard to go to West Númenor, but then the shame of quitting the Sea Guard makes him unworthy of West Númenor. So he wants to go on the expedition to Middle Earth, but he can't, because he quit the Sea Guard. Look, it's fine to have a character haunted by his past choices, if he was forced into them by circumstance, or his outlook is changed by subsequent events. This just makes Isildur look like he has brain damage. He is his own worst enemy. Only enemy, in fact. After getting expelled from the entire Númenorian school system, Isildur goes to his dad to whine about not getting chosen for the expedition. I expected to see some fallout, with Elendil getting extra pissed, but in this show every scene is apparently written by a different person, and they only pass each other single-sentence notes on who each character is supposed to be, so Elendil has mysteriously transformed into Momlendir off-camera. Oh, you got expelled? Fine, go to West Númenor. See if I care. Secondary characters in the Rings of Power don't seem to be truly conscious. There's absolutely nothing going on behind these eyes. I find this fascinating, because this is what stories are supposed to be made of. Characters have personalities which motivate their goals. They encounter adversity, be it in the form of other people with conflicting goals, or their own personality flaws. Galadriel is motivated by revenge and duty to hunt down Sauron. To achieve that, she needs an army and transportation to Middle Earth. Her adversary is, at least initially, the Queen. Valandil had always dreamed of being a sailor. To that end, he wants to pass the sea trial. His adversary is Isildur, with a little help from the writers in the guise of the Sailmaster. The writers also seem to think he later achieves his goal, because he does end up on a boat, but we will get to that later. Isildur wants to go to West Númenor, because he does. Then he wants to go to Middle Earth, because he does. His adversary is himself, not only in the metaphorical sense of his own character flaws impeding him from achieving his goals. Isildur of today is actually getting sabotaged by the Isildur of yesterday. I'm not demanding deep personal philosophies and epic character arcs here. I just want to see people do things that make sense for reasons. If Isildur had a scene where he gets a bit peckish, so he goes to buy himself a hot dog but realizes he left his wallet in his other pants, so he borrows a couple Númenor from Valandil. That would be one of the best storylines in the show. Easily top 5. At this point, Isildur's only 2 friends had volunteered for the mission, and Valandil was promoted to lieutenant.
Lieutenant.
Right, he was promoted for his good try at killing the psycho elf lady, skipping at least 2 and up to 15 ranks, depending on the specific structure of the Númenorian navy. We start the next relevant scene with Valandil aggressively cock-blocking Ontamo. Isildur then shows up to petulantly demand a favor from a person whose career he set on fire.
You're only apologizing because you think, now that I've been promoted, I can get you on the expedition.
Can you? I'm glad that you apologized.
He did it.
I did!
He did. Remember? He apologized and then you insulted his mother out of nowhere.
But I'll gladly do it again. I'm sorry I started the fight.
What? That's what you're apologizing for? What? No. Isildur, you're going to Middle Earth because you want to atone for what happened to your friends, right? If they weren't thrown out of the Seaguard, you'd have happily gone to West Númenor, right? Then we have an unfunny but satisfying bit where Isildur lets Valandil try and knock some sense into him. And a second bit, which could have been funny if the execution wasn't botched. Valandil says Isildur is still probably his best friend, can't imagine why, and he turns to Ontamo as if challenging him to protest, which of course he does. And then Valandil goes, "Ontamo, please," as if he was the one being unreasonable. It's such a dick move. In fact, look, I'll fix it for you.
And if you want to know the truth, you're probably still my best. What? Ontamo, please.
I don't know, maybe they wanted us to dislike Valandil at this point? Good guy Ontamo then promises to take care of Berek, Isildur's beloved horse. It turns out that the horse master recruited the horse? Judging by his expression, that's what makes him really desperate. And that might actually be the case, since the ship he stows away on, the one Kemen sets fire to, has stables below decks. The horses aren't there yet, presumably because you'd only hoist them on when you're about to depart. And obviously it's too early for the writers to kill one of the most important characters of Season 1. Look, Berek can take care of himself. He's twice the man you are. But no, really, why is Isildur stowing away on that ship? His dad and his friend, both his superiors in the chain of command, consider him too irresponsible to be trusted. What does he think is going to happen when they find him? The writers are trying to pull a fast one on us here. We don't know what Isildur was planning to do because, in the end, he doesn't get to do it. And because he never gets to do it, it doesn't need to exist. He has read the script and is putting himself where he needs to be to succeed by complete accident. So, how does he actually win back their trust? Well, it involves personal favors for the son of a certain prominent politician. Meanwhile, in the previous episode, an elf hater is rousing the rabble at the Builders Guild. This is actually the guy Halbrand mugged for plot reasons. Yerian exists in this scene. Kemen runs to report this to his father, who is currently schmoozing with his constituents at the marketplace. The show is trying to do a scene we've seen many times before. A politician is attending some sort of social function and has to keep a straight face while discussing some ongoing crisis with his subordinate, perhaps crossed with a scene where an investigator meets with an informant, but they don't want to appear like they know each other. Like he's greeting people, making eye contact, while talking to his son who's behind him.
Chancellor, statecraft!
Do you not want to be seen in public with your son, Chancellor? Kemen has a bitchy, passive-aggressive line, and Pharazôn chastises him for it, to which he replies, "I was only trying to be clever." Trying being the operative word. He's a politician. Meeting people is his job. So either you didn't realize what being a politician entails, and you're an idiot, or you did realize, and you were being a dick just for the sake of it. This line is weird in itself too. It's like they wrote Pharazôn saying, "Don't you get smart with me, young man." but they redrafted it to sound more Tolkien-y and to let him have the last word, so they ended up with this lemon of a dialogue. So Pharazôn does a speech reassuring the masses that the elves will not, in fact, take their gerbs. Irian moves towards the back of the crowd, so she can get a better view, and she teleports away from the scene entirely. Oh no, she's just barely out of frame, to Pharazôn's right. I mean, left. Kemen tries his corny pickup lines on Irian, but she's having none of it, for now. Maybe because he's just casually mentioned how he feels inadequate compared to his dad. He will later earn an off-screen dinner date with her by scrubbing the guild's floors. That's not a euphemism. And by later, I mean in the next scene they have together. Again, because this happens off-screen, we miss an opportunity to learn about these characters and their relationships. Perhaps it's for the best. I'm not sure I want to see these writers do romance. Oh. Oh no. Oh no. Isildur is volunteering for the Middle Earth expedition at this point in the story. Irian witnesses this and looks vaguely troubled. As far as I can tell, the motivation of all Irian's actions in the rest of this story arc is established in this 2-second reaction shot. Or not established, as the case may be, because we have no real indication of why she might be upset. I'm assuming she's worried about her brother, but maybe she just doesn't like that events are proceeding contrary to her political position. Irian joins the crowd in clamoring at Pharazôn, before Kemen gives her the inside scoop on the situation. Actually, she's just standing there, spacing out. Then she looks at Kemen climbing up on this elevated walkway, which is her cue to start walking stage left. Kemen is carefully not catching up to her, and this extra turns around too early. Irian, you could just go around this guy, there's plenty of space. Was this shot supposed to be framed differently? What's going on? Why is this so shit?
Come with me.
Come with me 5 steps this way, so we can be better lit for this dialogue scene. If Irian is worried about her brother going to war, couldn't she, and this is a fairly radical idea, talk to him? Try and convince him to stay? And what is she trying to accomplish here exactly? Her current job is sweeping floors and fetching coffee for the Builders Guild. I don't think it's likely the second most important person in the kingdom is going to stop and listen to the particular concerns of a random apprentice just because she's shouting his name. So Kemen tries to convince his dad to do a 180 on his foreign policy by appealing to his racism. Pharazôn essentially calls his son an idiot and reveals his master plan to extract economic benefits for his country in exchange for saving the Southlands from getting taken over by Satan. Kemen, I don't even know, cries? He has no counter, he just sieves all day and then sets a ship on fire during the night. If Isildur's story is undercooked, Kemen's is raw, we can at least gather the crumbs of motivation and imagine Isildur as sort of a Luke Skywalker with attention deficit disorder, but for Kemen there's nothing. He's just war I'm bad, and when he gets told war I'm good because economic, he shits himself and explodes. It hurts. As the two imbeciles escape the conveyance soon to join the choir invisible, Kemen does the horror movie trope and trips on nothing. We have a fake-out suggesting that Isildur briefly considers just letting him die, but actually he drags Kemen to shore. Why? He just fell over. You could help him up. Did falling over make him forget how to swim? Oh, and are there 2 empty rowboats floating near the burning ship? That's a bit suspicious. It's worth noting that the contrived nature of Kemen meeting Isildur only serves the latter. Assuming he wouldn't trip, Kemen's plan would have gone off without a hitch, and the effect would be the same. It's never explained how simply not letting a drowning man die leads to Isildur getting a spot on the boat. Maybe we could have had a scene where Pharazôn meets Isildur to personally thank him for saving his son, but the subtext would be that he figured out what really happened and is buying Isildur's silence. But no, Elendil just changes his mind off screen. Irian witnesses her brother going off to war and actually expresses an emotion with her face this time. A scene like this could be really powerful. All you need is characters we can sympathize with, a relationship between them that was previously developed, and a real possibility of them never meeting again. In this case, the characters are less than one-dimensional. Irian has never unambiguously expressed concern for her brother before this exact moment, and we know for a fact that Isildur can't possibly die. Of course, it's reasonable for Irian herself to worry. It would be odd if she didn't. But for the audience, the potential for emotional resonance is effectively non-existent. Wait, are they? No. They aren't trying to evoke the sacrifice of Faramir. Surely, no.
We have reason to suspect a passing brigand.
What reason? What reason? Do you often have trouble with passing brigands in this port city that's also the seat of your government? Does Elendil know? Is he covering for his son? How are you here already? Did you teleport? Is this a special ability that runs in your family? Everyone ignores Elendil's dumbass comment, and they discuss delaying the mission to Middle-earth to gather more public support. The logistics issue of losing 40% of the materiel doesn't warrant a mention. How does this affect your battle plans? Are you going to pull 2 more boats from the Seaguard patrols? Apparently not. Isn't it kind of weird how each of these ships seems to hold about 25 soldiers, 12 sailors and 10 horses, but in the next episode they will uncompress into at least 160 men on horseback? Previously, I suggested that Isildur and Kemen meeting could be simply explained by convenience, but this convenience is also suspiciously convenient for the plot.
That was deliberate.
The damage from sabotage is serious enough to give the Queen and her evil vizier doubts about the mission, but not serious enough to make it impossible. So the Queen demands that Lord Halbrand attend their next meeting.
I am not the hero you seek.
For you see, Galadriel had previously been marooned at sea with a random peasant who stole somebody's stylish designer handbag. She somehow decided that the exclusive brand is a sure sign that he's part of the Southland's long-lost royal bloodline.
After I all but begged you to let me be, find him and head to Crown.
Halbrand himself repeatedly denies this utterly idiotic line of logic and, in fact, later turns out to be the Antichrist.
This is the one thing we didn't want to happen.
Sauron had suffered a vaguely described bitter defeat in Middle-earth, and all he wants to do now is to live peacefully as a blacksmith. He is only turned back from the path of redemption by the persistent nagging of a crazy person.
I should never have pulled the elf on board. I should have left her in the sea where I found her.
I kind of like this guy. He looks like he takes pride in putting his all into his duties, even if the captain just ordered him to fetch a broom and stand by. He's already better than Isildur. I wish he was the main character.
Look, his father secured him a post. Again.
Earn mine. Same as you.
The fuck you did? Valandil fought a bloodthirsty psychopath. You aided a terrorist.
Then for what did you join a soldier?
I was just trying to get away.
You fucking dipshit. So, there you have it. The conflict is resolved. In the adult minds of the writers, at least. Valandil always wanted to be a sailor. He's not. He joined the army, were shown his competence in combat, and you could say what he really wanted wasn't what he thought he wanted. But the show doesn't say that. We're left to imagine a character arc took place off screen. Elendil will drop half of his IQ points in the sea on his way to the Southlands and assume his son is dead, despite all indications to the contrary. The writers will never figure out what Isildur's motivation is. He will get into some more pointless bullshit and then make out with somebody else's wife. Ontamo is nothing but helpful. One of his friends gets him fired. His other friend ropes him into volunteering to fight in a foreign war and shits on him for no apparent reason. He will later almost get killed by orcs, volunteer for a humanitarian relief mission, and get killed when a quasi-supernatural volcanic eruption drops a house on him. This wasn't a review of the Rings of Power, but I'd give it 1 star for the laughs I had along the way. I would recommend watching it by fast forwarding through every scene that doesn't have word drag in it. Please make 3 more seasons. Thank you for watching tonight's episode of Analytical Cinema Rants. If you liked this video, that's too bad, because the next one will probably be nothing like this one.